Hey, what's up everybody? Rob Marzullo here, Ram Studio Comics. Welcome back. In today's video, I'm working on a fan art piece of Superman versus Batman, and just kind of wanted to show you the process. And as I work through this lengthy drawing, I kind of spent too much time on this one, but that tends to happen when I'm having fun and really getting into a piece, and I just almost sometimes get to a point where I just don't want to let go. I just want to keep adding detail, and that's kind of what happened here. But sometimes you can take it too far, so just keep that in mind. Anyways, so what I'm doing here, I'm working inside of Sketchbook Pro 8, obviously, and just laying out some of the basic structure right now and figuring out where things are going to go, what details where, techie lines on Batman's suit, anatomy on Superman, things like that. So a lot of what I do here is adjust proportions, move things around, and just kind of get placement of the overall larger shapes so that when I go into the next stages, I can refine it with a little bit more confidence and get to a little bit better level of clarity as I progress forward through it. So I use layers to do that, a little bit of soft erasing, just like traditional drawing where you would use like a kneaded eraser. So I try to always make the software feel like as traditional as possible. And that's one of the things I really like about Sketchbook Pro is the drawing aspect of it feels very, very natural. So I'll actually end up inking this one in Manga Studio. So I do this from time to time where I draw in Sketchbook Pro, I ink in Manga Studio, and then I sometimes color in Photoshop. So it's like I'm pretty much just a software junkie and I use them all. So don't feel like you have to do that. Any one of these programs or any of the ones of the three that I just mentioned can do all of the tasks at hand. I feel they just all do that one specific thing better in regards to one another, but they can all do each other's job as far as that goes. And just so you know, I'm using a Cintiq here. I generally will bounce back and forth from a Cintiq to an Intuos, but I really can't do this level of refinement with my Intuos. I could probably do close, but it would just look a little bit more rough, or I guess to the level you're seeing right here, it would look about like this. The next stage where I start to really clean up the lines, I don't know that I could do that quite as well, or at least quite as quickly. So working on Superman here, I always struggle with this character. He's got a really ultra defined look, obviously, because he's been drawn so many years. Everybody knows him, obviously, so it's really easy to get him wrong. And I always struggle with that. It's one of the reasons why I like to do pieces like this, because it teaches you a lot about where you're at with your art, like how much better you need to get. And I'm still not there. I still got a long ways to go because I just don't nail the character like I would have liked to have got him just really well done. But there's also that point too, I think, with these drawings where you have to put the baby to bed and move on to the next one. So essentially, even though I don't feel like I nailed this particular piece, I have to just go ahead and say, yep, I made it as good as I could today, and I'll try to prove upon it next time. So what I recommend there is, like, whenever you find a certain element of your artwork that isn't up to par, don't let it prevent you from producing a piece and staying in a forward momentum, getting things done. Because for one, you're always your worst critic, or sometimes or most of the time you are. So it's probably best that you at least get the work out there. There's going to be some people that like it. There's always going to be people that don't, things like that. So it's better that you at least continue to produce work. And if you expect to work professionally, that's a conditioning that you have to get past anyways. So there's times when the work isn't as good as maybe it could have been, but at the same time, if you produce the work, it's going to lend to you making money and making a living as an artist. So it's got to be done. And like I said, you can always use it for food for thought and how to improve your next piece and your next piece and all that. And the reason I'm touching on that subject is because I hear about people that are like, oh, I just can't seem to get any better. I'm kind of stagnating, or I'm stuck on a particular thing. And sometimes I think that what they're doing is they're comparing themselves to their last greatest work of art. And you're always going to have that where sometimes you just immediately excel on something, and you don't have to compare yourself to that. You don't have to compare yourself to that, to other artists. Just enjoy what you're doing and keep producing art, and you'll get there. That's the best I can say. Is everything is fixed with time and practice and producing work. So yeah, so here I get to a level where I start to refine a bit more and add some cross hatching or some line shading. And here I do this shadowing effect that I'm pretty fond of these days, where I just take a big gray marker tip kind of effect, and I just blot in a bunch of shadows. Then I go back and draw my shadows and line work over top. And that helps me immensely. I can't stress that enough, because I've always been one of those guys that was really light-handed with my shadows and really scared or something. I don't know, scared. I'm like terrified when I'm drawing, but I was always very light-handed with placing in my shadows, and then I would see people's works of art that just have these beautiful shadows. Like David Finch comes to mind. Great shadows in his work and really dynamic use of them. So then I'm like looking at that and go, man, I wish I could make my artwork pop off the page like that. And then I look at my stuff and go, well, I'm not putting in nearly enough shadows, so that's probably part of it. So I developed that method for giving me a little bit more confidence to work up to my shadows, and it seems to be working. So I would suggest you try it if you have that same problem. And then here I'm using the awesome perspective tools in Sketchbook Pro to drop in a 1-point perspective for a background that I ultimately don't end up using, which is funny. But and then I changed Superman's face here, and now in retrospect, I'm kind of wishing I didn't. I think it almost made him look a little bit more evil, which seems to be what everybody's doing these days with Superman. And I don't really like that, unfortunately. I'm all about an anti-hero. My character is pretty much an anti-hero, but at the same time, to me, Superman is like this iconic good guy that I just feel like shouldn't be messed with. But whatever, everything, times change, people change things with time. But yeah, he's got this villainous side now. Everybody's dark and a little bit gritty nowadays, I guess. So I ended up making him look a little bit mean there, and I kind of wish I wouldn't have. But I tend to do that with my art. I actually have to try to stay away from that. Then here I'm detailing Batman. The suit I'm not real familiar with, so forgive me if there's discrepancies and it's not accurate or whatever. But I just look at a couple pictures for reference, and I don't think I ever saw Batman in a suit before the movie. I know they did some comic book work with that as well, but I don't collect in that detail where I would know in that capacity. So I just basically, hodgepodge it. And I like to always stylize stuff. That's why you'll notice that these characters don't look the way that they look in a lot of other renditions and things like that, because I'm not trying to adapt the exact version. I'm trying to put my own flair and style in there, simple as that. And I'm not saying it's a great flair style, I'm just saying I stay more interested in a piece if I'm able to do that. If I'm trying to copy something verbatim, my life expectancy for my interest is about few hours. That's why when I do my digital paintings, I usually complete those in a few hours if I'm studying reference. But if I'm drawing, I kind of think of this like a different thought process, where I'm trying to work on my style and my effects or whatever. So I pretty much draw it in my own regard. That's why you'll notice I probably put lines where there's not really lines in the suit and things like that. But again, that's just me trying to have fun with it and stay interested in what I'm doing. And just so you know, this piece probably took me about 8 hours just for pencils, which is extremely lengthy and too long. It shouldn't have. But partially because I was filling all this dark areas in by hand, where I would normally just put little X's. And the reason why, actually you can see some of those X's in the cape or whatever. The reason why I did that is I knew I was recording, and I wanted it to look better for the recording. So I pretty much did that for you guys. So hopefully you appreciate that. But it took a little bit longer, and it's not really necessary. If you start drawing enough of this, you'll start getting a pretty good idea of what something's going to look like filled in. I'm not saying I'm entirely there yet, but because there's sometimes I like filling in the work just to get a better visual myself to know where it's going. But as you start producing page after page after page, it's a nice shortcut to just grab the area, throw in some X's, and move on. Especially if you're working with an inker. Or I guess either way, if you're inking it yourself or working with an inker, it still makes sense. So yeah, still trying to figure out the armor here. One thing, again, in retrospect, I always look at these pieces after I'm done and go, I wish I would have did this, that, the other. One of the things is I wish I would have made the armor look a lot more gritty. They're fighting. Batman's not going to have this high polished steel armor. That's kind of the way it comes across. Now, by the time I color it, I should be able to or ink it and color it. I should be able to add some grit and grime in there. But I should have gave it some dents and some dings and things like that because he's fighting Superman. It's not gonna be pretty, I'm sure. So again, one of the things that I look back at when doing a piece and going, I should have did this, should have changed that. I think you're always gonna have that. So yeah, I can't really explain much of what goes through my head with this stuff other than I'm just like trying to follow that mapping process of the shadows that were already there, but then all the while still adding in like little details and little bits of style. To me, the style part, I guess it's all style because it's comic drawing or whatever, but it's the way that you incorporate the shadows, the way that you do the feathering. Obviously, design choices are like in the helmet here. I'm trying to figure out what I want to see in the indents or pieces of the helmet, things like that. So I guess those are all style choices on the way that you collaborate that or composite that together, I should say. But yeah, it's hard to really explain what my thought process is there, other than I'm trying to keep a consistent light source somewhat, because I'm really bad with light sources, but also give little bits of style and rendering to it that I think look cool. So I don't know. I always look at comics like it's a mix between functionality and just what visually looks appealing. So it's not always like, a shadow must go here because this is where a shadow would go in this real world scenario. This isn't real world stuff. You're having fun. You're imagining and exploring things with your visual imagination, your mind's eye. So you're just really just having fun with it. I don't know if there's necessarily a right or wrong way, but it's funny because you'll definitely notice when something is just too wrong to be right for the piece, and you'll look at it and go, Superman's face looks funny, or his lower hand looks clunky or too big, or, so you'll see that stuff and then want to change it. That's part of what, makes you get better as an artist. But then there's parts where you're like, nah, I'm just going to leave it because I think it looks cool and I'm trying to be all artsy or something. I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, but yeah. So at any rate, just doing some of the little background work, and this stuff is fun because it's mindless. You can almost just, if you notice, I did away with the 1 point perspective. I felt it was a little too right down the middle and too I don't know. It didn't seem interesting enough to me. Probably simple as that. So I thought by doing these larger brick walls and rubble in the background, it would pull you into the shot more. Not sure if that really was successful on my part, but that was my thought process at any rate. But yeah, one of the things I like about rubble, smoke, things like that is it's mindless. You can just you really don't have to sketch it in first. I did a rough sketch of it and then just started penciling it in. So it's nice when you're working on a piece that's got a fair amount of detail. If you incorporate some areas where you just really don't have to think about it, because it keeps you, again, just probably a little more interested in the piece overall. But obviously it's got to work. If it's not, if it doesn't lend to making the piece a better piece, then you should probably get it out of there. So yeah, and still his eyes look like really evil here. Now, just so you know, my thought process on that was I was thinking, as I progressed drawing Superman's face, I started thinking about, well, maybe his eyes are glowing red. He's ticked off. Like, Batman, you're supposed to be my homie. Why are you, fighting me? This sucks, or whatever. I don't know if they're friends in the movie, but in the comic they're always fighting, and it's like, man, wouldn't you guys be pretty pretty good buds by now. But so at any rate, his eyes are glowing red, and he's ticked off. Maybe he's getting ready to shoot his heat vision or whatever it is. But I kind of bounce back and forth from that idea, and who knows? By the time it goes to color, that's probably what it'll be. I don't know that I'm going to have the beams shooting out. I was going to have them like shooting out and hitting off his armor, but I'm thinking I might just light up his eyes red in the coloring stage. So another thing that I struggled here with a bit was figuring out the amount of line weight around the edge and in the eyes. If you notice, I keep moving those around and dinking with them. So at any rate, the line weight around the character is so important, and I've been studying all these different artists, great people like Jim Lee and Silvestri and just all the great guys and Todd McFarlane, and studying their line weight around the perimeter of their characters. And it's so different, but it's all there. It's all got that nice heavy line weight in certain areas and thinner in other areas. And I believe it's a good way to show separation from the character. I still don't feel like I added enough of it. You'll see at the very end of this, I go back around and add another thicker kind of line weight around it because I put in probably too much detail in the background, too much variety, I don't know how to explain it, too much little details all over the place in the background, so it didn't have enough separation from the characters. So then I go back through with the line weight, and you see I'm still trying to fix that stupid hand at the bottom because I didn't get that right either. Yeah, I don't even know why I'm posting this. Oh, I know why, because I put too much time into it. I got to post it. But, so I put all this little minuscule detail in the background, and I'm like, it kind of took the focus away from the character, so I try to fix that with some heavier line weight. So I guess my point is that, really study line weight, look at, your favorites and, the artists you think are cool, and really study how they do their line weight, their composition, their separation with shadows, because that ultimately I think is what helps make a piece like this work. Again, I don't think I nailed it on this one by any means. That's kind of why I'm saying that I'm taking note of that, because I need to look at theirs. And I always study those guys. Those are like my fan favorites that got me into wanting to do comics and all that. And if you've watched my channel, you probably know all about that. But they're just, these uber talented artists, that just like, to me, revolutionized comics. But, some people say quite the opposite or whatever. And I just think that, their art was so immaculate, and it's worth studying. So if you're ever trying to get better, just study those guys, just look at their work, see what they're doing, see what works, what doesn't. I don't know if there's much that doesn't, but, just study it. And you're going to find certain elements from each one that resonate with you, I think. And then you're going to go, okay, this artist is impressive to me because of this. And then it's probably meaning that you need to study a certain aspect of their work and that you'll gain from there. And then move on to the next and just repeat that process. I think that you stand to learn something from almost any artist, so here I'm just scribbling more of that little minutia in the background and texturing and detailing. And again, I get a little bit lost in that because it's just mindless and it's fun. I don't know. I love to doodle, at heart, I'm a doodler. What can I say? So I could do this all day, every day, and I just don't get bored of it, which is why I could tell, it's a passion of mine. So yeah, and then by the time I get to the background, I'm like wanting to do all these old detailed buildings, but I'm like, you know what, it's just getting to be too much. And really, the more things recede into space, the more they start to fade out. So it's better to just lightly detail those and move on. And then I start to see more flaws in the other things. About this stage, I start to see flaws everywhere because I'm essentially looking at everything in contrast to the other elements now. So, I didn't think the helmet was right. I'm still bothered by Superman's face. I give him some pupils and change the shape of his eyes a bit to try to bring him back to more of a human, even though he's not a human. He's an alien. You know what I mean? Give him more of a human look. And, so I just kind of keep moving along with that process and pinballing around and trying to finalize the work. And here's where I get rid of the lines underneath. it always makes the artwork look a little bit more flat, because I don't have that additional shading beneath. And then I just go through and start drawing that final line work around and adding some little bits of shadows here and there, trying to just propel the characters forward in the scene. And like I said, I don't know that I did that as well as I should have. I think they blend into the background too much. But, as I ink it and color it, I should be able to fix that. So there it is. So at any rate, I appreciate you tuning in and watching this. If you've gained something from this, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. I appreciate that. It helps me progress the channel. And let me know what you'd like to see in the future. I'm always listening. So keep drawing, keep having fun, and I will talk to you soon.